they might have some, extra needs and stuff like that, tacked on, but the essential from what I'm getting is ethics in journalism. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah. No, like there's actually, of course, it has evolved now. It's been over a year or something like a year now, and it has evolved. And of course, there's the main focus and the main reason this thing exists are the concerns about ethics and collusion in games journalism. And there have been some like really nasty things discovered about how things actually are in the games journalism, and like there's a lot to talk about there. And then there's the harassment motive that just completely destroys any attempt to discuss ethics in games journalism. And you are absolutely right that when these fucked up threats and the serious harassment and like really harsh words are flying around, then well, of course there can be no civil discussion there. Of course people are just gonna turn away and go, bah, don't bother me.
Yep.
But what I think you will see whenever you start discussing Gamergate with people, now they might be, they might be often like really impatient because they have been accused of horrible shit, like en masse. You have, like, for example, I am blocked by many people on Twitter as like one of the worst harassers on the internet. There's a blog bot that a shit ton of people are using, and I'm being blocked by games journalists. I'm being blocked by people I have never even met. I don't even know that exist, and I was basically publicly labeled one of the worst harassers on the internet, and that happened to a ton of people. There's like what is stunning about this, that there was no attempt to discuss the ethical issues from games journalists, and instead they went on to, like, I'm so fucking screwing this up in explaining what's going on, but the games journalists, instead of going into debate and saying, all right, so let's see how we can improve shit, they instead attacked their readers or the people that were showing concern.
Oh yeah,
and
that entire series of articles about how gamers are dead or something like that. That was just reading that from my perspective. And I'm part of the press. I to some extent am a part of what the problem is. But I'm like sitting there and I'm going, okay, you guys have to realize that you can't write articles like these because you're just gonna piss people off. You aren't gonna get a point across. The other thing is that there is a problem with ethics in games journalism. In 2008, I believe it was, they fired an editor at GameSpot because he wrote the Kane and Lynch review and gave it a 6 out of 10 when they had an advertising deal, and because of advertising pressure, they fired him over it. That is just so absurd. That guy couldn't give his honest opinion on a game because advertising was looming over the head going, you guys have advertising deals with us, you can't rate it this, you can't rate it this low, you gotta bump it up to 8 or 9. It's just so, it's so stupid to see, and I understand that, and this might not have crossed anybody's mind in Gamergate. There is this subconscious decision by people. They don't rate a game a certain score, then they won't have a job the next day, and and the prime example is the GameSpot editor getting fired over it. You know, there's people who are afraid of losing their jobs because they can't, you know, give an honest opinion. And I completely get that. You know, when I was reviewing Halo, the Master Chief Collection, it was broke as fuck. Doubt about it. They gave it to us 2 weeks before it even came out, and it was broke as fuck. They didn't even have the multiplayer up. And then they're going over how they're getting patch in the multiplayer and stuff like that, and it was like, okay, well, launch date. So from there, it was like, okay, I'm not even gonna give you guys a review score because I'm just gonna tell everybody to not buy this game. And the thing was is that I'm sitting there and I'm like, am I even allowed to do this? Like, is this? And I asked my editor, and he goes, yeah, dude, go right ahead. It's not like we're gonna get blacklisted or anything like that. You know, you're telling people the honest truth about it. And I was like, okay, let's do it then. And that's what I did. That's the first time MP First has ever had a review that didn't have a score on a game that basically said Microsoft can go fuck themselves because they fucked this game so much. Don't buy this trash. That is basically what that review said in a blunt way. And a lot of people can't do that. You know, a lot of people are afraid to lose their jobs because they can't speak truthfully about something. And to some extent, you know, if advertising and the Pinocchio effect wasn't over their heads, you know, it wouldn't be like that, you know. But then on the other hand, ethics in games journalism isn't as terrible as a lot of people are making it out to be. You know, a lot of the times, and this is like 90% of the cases with reviews, you don't get people that are, you know, going, hey, we'll give you more money if you know, rate the review higher, you know. But then you have incentives, okay, and this is where no one's focusing. You have press events, and at press events you can get gifts from developers, and that kind of says, hey, we gave you an expensive gift, so in return, rate the review a little higher. Now, they don't say this at all, but sure, that is the notion with those gifts, you know? Like, hey, we'll give you a tablet, you know, a $300 tablet, and, you know, maybe you can, you know, rate the review a little higher. That's the notion that they give. I mean, they're not saying it in any word or any forms, but it's the idea that comes with, you know, those gifts and stuff, like, you know. And that's why some sites like Eurogamer now go, we don't do press events, and if we do, we fly ourselves out there, we fully disclose that we went out there, and we don't accept any gifts at all. And I respect them for that, because
that's great, yeah.
Yeah, because when you go to these press events, you know, it's so much different than what you would experience for a game that is in retail. You know, Battlefield 4 was a huge example. You know, people went to the press events and played it beforehand, and they were like, they're absolutely in love with this game. You know, it was fantastic. 4 out of 5, 5 out of 5, you know, 8s and 9s out of 10s. You know, it had so many awards attached to it. And then the game came out and it was like, what are they thinking? Like, are they actually reviewing this game, or are they just getting paid to say, you know, it's 9 out of 10 because this game is broken? And again, another huge issue with that is, you know, you have press events that aren't mirrors of the retail versions of the games, and that's why sites, again, like Eurogamer or MP First or my site, we don't do press events for reviews. We go, okay, we get the retail version of the copy, and then we review it when it's out to everybody, and we wait a few days to put out the review. So I think if everyone could take point from each side, you know, and points that are valid, you know, let's not focus on harassment. Let's focus on the actual substance of what the movement is about, and let's put all the points in, see what's an issue to a lot of people, create actual viable solutions to those problems, and then everyone's happy. But then, like you said, everybody is just kind of sitting there like, like, what about the harassment? What about the death threats? What about this, and that? And it's like, no, okay, we get it. A minority of people are harassing others. That is clearly there. We've seen it. We've got examples. People have had to leave their houses over it. But let's not forget that a lot of people will just harass people and then throw the cape over it, and then go harass people, and then when we do harass those people, they'll see, hey, they got the cape of Gamergate on them. Now we know who the movement and the culprits are. Those people exist, absolutely, and you have the larger majority that are looking to say, hey, we aren't about harassing, we're about changing something. So let's talk about change and not, focus on the minority of people that are harassing others, because there will always be a small group that is just harassing people. That's obvious, but there's always going to be a bigger group that's looking for a more civil approach to fixing things,
Yeah, what the problem is that the civil majority was given very little space, while the idiots and the trolls on both sides, because Gamergate has received just as much harassment as anyone has ever received from Gamergate, and actually Gamergate have had their own Gamergate harassment patrol. Guys that were going around forums, Twitter, and message boards, and were finding people who dox or harass people and reported them, and so that's going on. But I think what is important is that these are two separate issues. Now, you were speaking you were saying really interesting stuff about the fucked up things with game shows and with game reviews beforehand, and that's a huge discussion to be had. And then, of course, we should talk about harassment. We should talk about dicks on the internet being dicks and how to deal with them. But those are two separate issues, and I think that unfortunately the blame is not on Gamergate, but on the journalists. And I think it's, I don't want to put a tinfoil hat on, but basically, gamers accuse journalists of being corrupt, and the journalists, never addressed that or took their sweet time to address that, and instead immediately said, yeah, do you see all these, sexist, misogynistic harassers on the internet and how disgusting they are and all that? And, I think that from the sites that were involved in some of the scandals, and that, kept popping up in the mailing lists and so on, that these probably were the ones that were the most aggressive in those articles, like Leigh Alexander and Polygon, these guys. So, I don't want to sound like a conspiracy theorist, but when
all your opinion, man.
11, 12 articles, all pretty much saying the same, like gamers are over and they're so angry because they're over, and they don't have to be your audience and whatever. 11 or 12 articles within the span of 24 hours. And then, of course, someone leaks the mailing list, the Game Journal Pros, where, people from different sides talk about how they're gonna cover stuff. So then you don't really have to, go too far to realize that, well, maybe the harassment narrative is a bit overblown, and is being pointed to lead the attention away from what Gamergate is about and is trying to change. And that is, you know, our own fucked up practices. So we'll just, you know, spew shit saying that, oh, and then, you know, they harassed her out of her home. And, you know, there's even like when you check the evidence that is there to be seen, of course there might be stuff that that we couldn't see because it was never revealed, and so on and so on. Like, there's little to nothing connecting, you know, the most visible and the most famous harassment to Gamergate. And somehow Gamergate gets the blame for anonymous shitheads on the internet who just, you know, do it for the shits and giggles. And of course,
hey,
like,
check out.
I'm sorry. I know about tweets and really nasty shit signed #Gamergate that will, like, I'm coming to your home. I'm gonna, I don't know, masturbate into your skull and whatever. And these exist. And when you check out the accounts, it's just like a 3-day-old account, never did anything else, or I don't know, or it's even an account that used to tweet "Stop Gamergate" or "Gamergate is hate," and then you see them tweeting shit like this. So, like, it's really messed up, and I think, like, what? Yet the harassment, I think, is there, and is there so you know, there's so much of it because it's so visible, because these dicks are attracted to attention. They want attention, and we're giving it to them. And not only are we you know, giving sick fucks exactly what they want, but we also are effectively stopping a serious debate about stuff that we care about. So that's why a lot of Gamergaters are frustrated, because, you know, they try to open their mouths like, hey, you know, let's talk about Gamergate, and fuck you, you know, you harass women. And I got friends ask me, like, what's your problem, man? Like, are you really, you know, in support of harassing women? And then you have to explain to your friends. And in some cases, people had to explain that to their families. You know, like, no, actually, you know, this is bullshit. When the media, when the mainstream media, the MSNBC and I don't know, the fucking Times and Guardian write about a movement that you're part of, and they write the shit that they write, that were misogynistic trolls determined to chase women out of the gaming industry. I mean, that's just sick. That's sick, you know. And there's if you start, you know, go on Twitter and start a debate with Gamergaters. If you're polite and if you are actually willing to have a debate, you will soon find out that, yeah, you know, they're nice people. No one's going to threaten your life. Maybe, you know, afterwards when you say, well, maybe there's a point to this, maybe you're not so bad, guys, and someone from the other side might threaten you. I don't know. I'm just kidding.
Well, hey, check out. I linked a research paper on Gamergate, and this is by a guy who isn't part of game journalism, but isn't part of Gamergate as well. And this is his research on it, and I found it extremely informative too, because the guy uses something like 1,200 sources of information to do this research paper, and you might want to take a look at it because it's got some interesting points to it. You know,
okay.
how the media covered it, how most of the sources and stuff like that covered it, things like that.
That will be interesting. Like, if I alt up, I stop streaming. So, we're still streaming, by the way. I hope you don't mind.
What do you mean, where is it?
No, I hope you don't mind. We are still streaming.
Oh, no, not at all.
No, okay. And do you mind if I later put it on YouTube? Because I think this might interest some Gamergaters. And maybe someone outside Gamergate too.
Completely fine.
Okay, cool. You know what? I'm gonna take a break, and I think you said you needed to go as well, and I think we might call it a day.
I need to go play. Go ahead.
Okay, so let's call it a day, and let's continue sometime in the future. I think this was fun, and when we manage to actually play some games, that will be even more fun.
All right, man. Sounds good.
Okay, take care, and good night.
Peace out, man. Hey, make sure to bookmark this TeamSpeak so you can come back to it.
Okay, am I free to come anytime?
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, that's wonderful. Okay, so thank you very much, and good night. Or, I don't know, what time is it over there?
Let's just say good night.
Okay, good night then.